Superfanatics, Superfanatics, comic books, friends, fun discussion, video show. Superfanatics, 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 comic books, friends, fun discussion, video show.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Super Fanatics. I'm Bender.
I'm Nicholas.
And today we are kicking off December, the Christmas month, holiday season, with our review of Krampus, Shadow of St. Nicholas. We're doing this in conjunction with SUPERSCARY, which you'll see tomorrow, where we review the Krampus movie.
First time this has happened.
Yeah, first time we've done a comic and a movie combo.
Yeah. So let's dive right in. This comic, it was put together and written by Michael Dougherty, Todd Casey, and Zach and Laura Shields. All of those people, except for Laura, were involved in writing the Krampus movie.
Yes. So we're bringing the same team over, which is pretty cool. I like that they have kind of, they at least have control over like what they're doing, and it seems like Michael Dougherty has a special place for comics, because his other movie, Trick or Treat, there is also a comic book of that film as well.
And you get the comic intro to that movie.
Yeah.
With all the panels. And
so I like this. Yeah. I like these relations they're doing here.
It's cool, and it's also especially nice and reassuring when a comic book is handled by the same people who made the original property, whatever it is, a video game or a movie in this case. A lot of times sort of these kind of properties get just shoveled off onto like some no-name writer, and then they get lost in the shuffle. But this is the real deal, and I quite enjoyed it, and I believe you felt the same way.
I did like it. I actually, I think I'll go on record saying I actually preferred the book to the movie. And that's not to say that like the book is a better version of the movie, because it's a completely different story.
Several stories.
Yeah. But I preferred the setup of the book and having several different stories, because I much preferred the movie Trick or Treat to Krampus. Although Krampus is a good movie, but we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah. But where this differs from the Krampus movie is the Krampus movie is one story told throughout the course of 90 minutes or whatever. This is more of an anthology feel. It feels more like Trick or Treat the movie.
Right.
Which I think is why you seem to enjoy it more than the Krampus film.
Yeah. I thought it was cool. I thought there were a lot of nice examples, which I'm sure we'll cover, where the stories intermixed and kind of overlapped, just like in the Trick or Treat movie. And
right.
I really appreciated that, and I loved that they kept that those minor details in there.
And the cover back here was actually done by Fiona Staples, who's a giant in the comics industry now.
Yeah.
Probably know her from Saga more than anything else at the moment.
Right. Yeah, that's her main book she's been doing art on. But she pops up every now and then, and here's an example of one of those times. And
on the inside, a different artist handled each story, I believe. So you had Christian Dabari, Man House, Stuart Sager, and Michael Montanet. So some different feels to each story in this book, but I think that everyone did a good job. I know you said that it might have been a little sketchy for your taste in particular.
Yeah, a lot of the art in this book, which in nice contrast to the Christmas spirit, I feel like, and the happiness and all of that. A lot of the art in this book it's kind of undefined, I feel like. It's not so abstract or surreal. It's just very like cobbled together, and it looks nice, and I like it.
It's just a particular style. It's
right.
Not that the art's bad, because
no.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think
it's just not my style.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Differing opinions. Different strokes. But something else that I really liked about just the feel of the book is the tone of it, the color palette especially, I guess. It felt like it matched the Krampus movie.
Yeah, very dark, very bleak. Again, huge contrast to what you normally think of when you think of Christmas. I liked the first story where they're in kind of the supermarket, Mondo Mart, I believe, which is in the film, the opening scene of the film, which is pretty cool. So again, they're leaving a lot of these connections together, or bringing them over, and it's really cool. But when the power goes out in the Mondo Mart, and they're just kind of like scrambling to figure out what's going on, and things are starting to freeze inside the building. A lot of that was brought over from the film, and then it's portrayed in the book very similarly, very dark, and it works. It works really well.
Yeah, and so like the 4 stories that you get, I guess it's like you have 3 main stories, and then the 4th book of this particular trade is kind of the resolution that ties everything together. But book number 1 is the one that Bender was just talking about, and you get the cast of characters there. It focuses mainly on a girl named Audrey, the boss, Steve, who's kind of a dickhead, and then a Vietnam vet who is only referred to as Santa because he plays like your typical mall Santa. Yeah. But he's like, a drunk, he's a mess, can't keep it together.
He's very distraught.
Yeah.
Really think like Billy Bob Thornton in Bad Santa. Mm-hmm. That's really what they're trying to convey here.
Yeah.
But throughout the course of the book, this particular story, he kind of has a little bit of a turnaround, and really ends up trying to protect the children from the monsters in the store that are starting to come after him.
So he starts off, your typical slob, and then people end up relying on him. The manager, Steve, kind of tries to run the show at the beginning, and no one's really buying it. You can tell he's just the type of guy who wants to assert himself, to appear as if he has control, but really as soon as it falls upon him to do anything, he kind of breaks down.
Yeah, and I liked when he comes in yelling about how he and Audrey were attacked, and starts to say like they're gonna kill us. Mm-hmm. Santa like slaps him before he can say stuff like that in front of the kids,
and then slaps him again.
Just to make sure. Yeah, so it is that the first one was pretty cool. And much like the other stories, has a very stark ending, but that's okay. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
So the second story follows Officer Sandy Kim. She starts off in a graveyard, and apparently her sister has passed away. So she's visiting her sister's grave, and there's a note on the grave, and they never found who ran her sister over. And then for most of the story, she ends up chasing after a guy named Rick, who is caught stealing presents from a house.
And she catches him in the act, and before she takes him to the station, she is going to force him to return all of the gifts that he had stolen from various families in the neighborhood. And as they're on their way to begin this mission of returning all the gifts, that's when you get your monsters appearing in this particular portion of the book. Mm-hmm. And it's how their story kind of ends up being another case of I don't know, I guess there is a good bit of redemption throughout this book. It's a pretty big theme in all of the stories here.
And it's really a theme, throughout almost everything that Michael Dougherty has done so far. It's the two films and the 2 books that he's put out so far really have to do with like honoring tradition and remembering family values, and treating each other kindly and things like that, because if you don't, Krampus will come after you and drag your soul off to hell. So I thought this one in particular was interesting because I felt like Kim hadn't really done much wrong.
Yeah.
So it was interesting that she was being pursued.
but I guess she had become obsessed with
yeah.
finding who ran down her sister, however many years prior to the start of this book.
She had been skipping out on family Christmas for a
Yeah.
number of years.
You get that at the very beginning. She's, I believe, talking to her mother, who's kind of urging her, come out and see your family, and she's having none of it. She's got to stay on task and continue on with this obsession of hers.
Right.
So I guess that's probably the reason why Krampus is going after her.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So then we have our third and final story. Well, aside from the resolution, but the resolution's only a couple pages. And in this one, you get a group of homeless people who are living in a house, and they basically get kicked out onto the street because the house is going to be bulldozed. Right.
I guess they've been there for quite some time, and it just so happened that this was it, the last straw. The foreman, I suppose, running the demolition, had kind of looked the other way for a while.
I think the police had as well.
Yeah.
Everybody was just kind of like, okay, they're a family. They've got, there's maybe 4 kids in this story, I think.
Yeah.
At least three. And so they kind of let them, squat in this house. But then they kick them out.
Because it's being demolished like that night.
Right. So the man who's kind of responsible, I guess, maybe bought the property, something, is this guy named Tad Ferguson. And the group of homeless people decide to break into his house while he's on Caribbean vacation or Bahama vacation and spend Christmas in his mansion. And
helping themselves to, his food and...
Yeah, and his clothes and all that jazz. And he comes home, he hasn't left for the Bahamas yet, and catches them, and then sort of ends up having like a Christmas Carol type experience.
Yeah, he goes on a nice Scrooge trip.
Yeah, where he kind of checks in on all of these homeless people as children or different parts of their lives, and even looks back on his own childhood a little bit.
It is pretty much Michael Dougherty's take on A Christmas Carol.
Kind of bothered me a little bit, but at the same time, I felt like the payoff was pretty cool because I like the end of this story ties into another story directly, and so I liked that connection, and the whole Christmas Carol thing didn't quite bother me as much after that.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Christmas stories and stories centered around holidays, I feel like there are only so many different tales that you can tell. I don't mind going back over Christmas Carol in this one because I love that story anyway.
Yeah.
So seeing it done in a little bit different way, with the Michael Dougherty Krampus coat of paint over top of it, doesn't really bother me. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It really is. It was good. Probably the strongest story of the 3, I think, just because it's kind of that you have that classic storyline, and it's kind of hard to fuck that up, I guess.
I feel like it almost, that story in particular felt like 2 in 1, with starting out with the homeless group.
Yeah, it did.
And
You're
then
right.
moving into Tad Ferguson's Scrooge adventure.
Mm-hmm.
It did feel like there was a bit more stuffing put into that one than the others.
Yeah. So then, like we said, after that, there's the resolution where you get a nice little connector of all the stories and what's happened to all these people, and we'll talk about it because I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But it's good book. It's a good book.
And I don't know, you'll I guess if you're a fan of the anthology approach to storytelling, you might end up enjoying the book more than you enjoy the Krampus film. It's a tough call for me. It's a toss-up because I really liked both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I did too. I as I said previously in this video, I think I do prefer the setup of the book much more. I am a fan of anthologies. I love it.
Yeah.
So I actually, it's hard to think of another comic where I feel like the comic outshines the movie. At least when there's a movie first.
Mm-hmm.
If the comic is made into a movie, then,
That's fairly easy to do.
Right.
But history,
I enjoyed this book a lot, so definitely check it out for yourself.
a good thumbs up on this
Yeah.
one. You can put on your jingly Santa hat and sit by the fireplace with a glass of eggnog and enjoy it merrily.
Yeah. So make sure to tune in next week. We'll have another book for you. Maybe possibly Old Man Logan, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then
Track
make
it
sure
down.
to tune in tomorrow for Super Scary to see our review of the Krampus film. And until next week, I'm Bender.
I'm Nicholas.
We'll see you later.
Bye.